Hello, I'm Dr. Paul Mills, Director of Research and Engineering for Tannoy's Residential Division. I've been with Tannoy very nearly 25 years, of which time it's given me a great insight to the workings of the dual concentric. I've designed many new iterations of that device, and over that period of time it's got to give me a good understanding of the technology and how best to make it work. The dual concentric was launched at the 1947 radio show, it was called, at Olympia in London, and that was the Monitor Black. Now, at that time, it wasn't really envisaged as a hi-fi speaker or even a recording studio speaker. It was intended as in effect, a piece of very accurate test equipment. It had the flattest frequency response of any loudspeaker in the world. Yes, well, the Prestige range originates back to the 1980s and was very much driven by the Far Eastern market, Japan at that time, who they wanted something that was basically more luxurious, and it was a point source, so it was the LF and HF sources are time aligned, so its dispersion characteristics were very good. The first Monitor Black sold was actually to AKG microphones in Austria, who used it for obviously microphone testing, and it was then used by the BBC and the Decca Record Company, and then subsequently EMI, who they saw the benefits of the device as a studio monitor, going back to probably the most famous incarnation of the duals at that time was the Monitor Gold, which was launched in 1967, and between the black and the gold there are a couple of other improvements in terms of power handling, frequency response. The Monitor Silver followed by the Monitor Red, but in most people's minds it's the Monitor Gold that sticks out as being most memorable in terms of being an iconic design statement. Going back to the days of Abbey Road Studio, it was used, and 15-inch skulls were used for monitoring a lot of very famous albums, including Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. After several generations of the Prestige range as we know it today, we made quite a few improvements, so it seemed fitting to historically hark back to the Monitor Gold and call our new range the Gold Reference. Basic design of the top end models, the 15-inch and the 10-inch, have been very similar since the days of the Monitor Gold. There's several things happened with this new incarnation of the driver. Firstly, we've revised the high frequency compression driver. The old design harks all the way back to the 1960s, where the dome was an aluminium pressing, which was also part of the surround. So what we've done is to bring on some improvements which are a trickle down from the technology used in Kingdom Royal. Specifically, this relates to surround, which is now mylar instead of just an extension of the aluminium dome, and that gives a greatly improved termination of energy and a far smoother frequency response. We spent 2 years developing a new paper pulp fibre to overcome some of the issues with the older design, and not just because of performance, but because of the sustainability. The old fibres used something called kapok, which basically grows on a tree. It's a fluffy substance, and trying to find high quality fibres these days has proved to be very difficult, so we developed a semi-synthetic fibre material which effectively builds on the strengths of the old material and maintains the sound quality attributes which are so unique to the Prestige range. The technologies are very similar, but obviously over the years of Prestige the quality of components has increased, and we built on the strengths of our previous SE range, but in addition to that we've decided to cryogenically treat the complete crossover assembly, complete with the wiring and solder joints, the whole thing. That's done by cooling the assembly very slowly to an extremely low temperature in liquid nitrogen, which relaxes the crystal boundaries in materials, and especially things like solder joints these days, which with the advent of lead-free solder, solder joints I see as being somewhat problematic, and we feel that this technology, which we've used in other high models previously, gives a greater clarity, sweetness and detail. We've obviously wanted to maintain the essence of the Prestige sound, but I think what you will find on auditioning is that we've got greater detail, greater insight into the music. Improvements in some of the cabinets too have resulted in a faster, tighter, more tuneful performance. One thing we were very keen to do was to raise the bar in terms of presentation. You'll notice the features such as driver trim and the high frequency adjustment panel are very beautifully machined to a very high standard, and we feel that these days people expect more in that respect. Also the inlay detailing you see on some of the cabinets. The cabinets themselves have changed, some of them in subtle ways. For example, the Westminster Royal, certain parts of the rear bass horn have been revisited to optimise them further. The Canterbury, for example, has seen structural improvements to the cabinet, which result in a basically faster, more tuneful, low frequency response. So again, it's basically more of what people know, just building on what we've got. We're not trying to change the character of Prestige, I think that would be totally wrong, but we're just raising the performance level overall, I think.